Hi everyone! Seeing as now the importance of remote teaching and training is more apparent than ever, we decided to speed up the development of a completely new module for e-learning in 3D Vista Virtual Tour Pro, which we would like to present and explain in this tutorial today. In this video, we will show you how to work with the e-learning functions in 3D Vista Virtual Tour Pro, which will allow you to create virtual tours that can help you teach, train, or even test content in the most lifelike and immersive way. Virtual tours transport your audience to wherever you want from a computer or a mobile phone. And as we said before, remote teaching is no longer a nice to have. It's an absolute essential. And it is for that reason that virtual tours have become increasingly popular in teaching and training, because they allow students to travel anywhere in time and space, and they allow companies to place employees in potentially dangerous situations without actually getting them in harm's way. So how can you take virtual tours as most people know them, where you can look around and maybe click on a couple of hotspots with information or integrated videos, and make them your training tool? These are the new e-learning features that allow you to do just that. Assigning points to hotspots for treasure or hazard hunts. Quiz cards with media and actions for each answer. Scores, which allow you to tap into the benefits of game-based learning and gamification, or to use the tours as actual tests and exams. And finally, LMS integration, which automatically feeds the student's results. So how many questions did he reply to correctly? How long did it take for the whole tour? And feeds all of that information into your learning management system. In this tutorial part 1, we will talk about the general setup of your tour for e-learning, about how to integrate treasure hunt hotspots that count to a score, about how to add quiz cards, and some other e-learning related hotspot actions. In tutorial part 2, we will talk about e-learning related skin elements and the score system, and tutorial part 3 will be on LMS integration. So first, where can we find this new module? And that's here in the Publish tab, where here you have it, e-learning, as a newly added sub-tab in here. By default, this module or the e-learning functions are disabled. So if you don't do anything in here, your tool will not have any of the e-learning features incorporated. To enable it, you may have guessed it, click Enable Quiz. The first things that we can edit in terms of e-learning are these, and they're active when I enable quiz. So the second we enable the quiz, the tool will be an active e-learning tool with a timer, etc. So yes, the timer by default is set to 2 minutes. You can obviously change that time or switch the timer off completely. As we have seen briefly already, we have a new quiz card window with questions and answers. Here we select whether, in general, for all those quiz cards deployed in the virtual tour, we want to indicate the correct answer once the question has been replied to. So do we want to give a visual cue of whether the user was right or wrong? That would be the answer icon of the correct answer turning green and a potentially incorrect answer option chosen turning red. If we disable this, the user selects an answer and the window closes without giving feedback as to whether he chose the correct answer or not, so nothing turning green or red. And the duration of that visual cue, so how long does the green icon stay on screen before the window closes automatically. Down here you can see that the program automatically added 2 actions when we enabled quiz at the top. The first one is to show a little timeout window on screen once the time established has run out. And inside that window we can define whether we also want to display a repeat button, which would allow the user to repeat the entire tour or quiz, and a button that shows the result or score of how the user performed in the tour. And secondly, we have the enabled option to show the report at the end of the tour. The report is the window we saw before with the detailed information on how many points we scored, how many questions we replied to correctly, the time we needed, etc. And the option to choose whether we want the user to be able to close this window or not. Up here, we can edit and customize said report window. We insert a personalized text. We can show a number of qualifications or tiers. For instance, if you have more than 80%, that'll be a pass for the student, or if you have more than 90%, he'll get a grade good, very good, etc. And here on the right, we can show a number of options to personalize that score screen a little bit. In here, we can further personalize the score itself and add several coexisting scores for different events. We leave it at one score for now and then go into detail little by little later on to show you how to add more scores. So as you can see, the first setup of our tour for e-learning is super straightforward. Now we can go into detail and create the actual quiz content. Therefore, we go to the Panorama tab and to Hotspots. We place a hotspot, or in this case, we already have one here, which we select. And as usual, we click on Add Action to define what should happen upon clicking this hotspot. From the list of all possible hotspot actions, down here we have the e-learning related ones. And from all these e-learning actions, the ones that we will end up using most are the first two: Count to Score and Question Card. These ones are for very specific and advanced actions that you may not even end up needing, because we already defined the countdown and report window in the two options that popped up before in the Publish tab. So this would only be for more precise options, and we will look into these at the very end of this tutorial. But let's first focus on the first two actions. The first option is Count to Score, and this is as simple as telling the tour that when this hotspot is clicked, count to score 1, which is currently the only score we have in the tour, X points. And that can be 1 point or several points, depending on how important or how hard to detect that hotspot was, or it can even deduct points from a score if we go into the negative numbers. Let's set it to 1. And like I said, this is useful for tours where you want your audience to detect things that are wrong in the scene, or you want them to go on a treasure hunt or anything like that. So, for instance, they could collect points by clicking on things they are meant to be clicking on, but they could also lose or deduct points whenever they click on hotspots they aren't meant to be clicking on. So you can make it really tricky and penalize wild and random clicking around. And of course, it doesn't matter whether these hotspots are visible, say with an icon, or invisible, in which case the user would really have to look around and find, say, missing hard hats or trip hazards, etc. Right, the second big action would be the question card. Here we have a couple more options. As usual, up here we define the event, so launch this quiz card upon click, and count the points scored with this card to score number 1. Here we would type in our question, and down here we add our response options. Response 1, response 2, response 3. Okay, here we have two general options. Single choice, which means the user can only select one single response option, either this one or this one or this one, but not several. And multiple choice, which allows the user to select several answer options, for instance A and B, and where more than one answer are or can be correct. Let's leave it at single choice. So you type in your 3 response options, and next to each one we have a button to delete them. You have the number of points that each answer will score, so for instance choosing the correct answer will get the user 1 point, while choosing an incorrect answer B or C will yield 0 points, or even deduct points from the overall score. And finally, these icons here give us a very cool option in terms of reinforcing the learned material, and it's answer-specific action triggers. So, if the user selects answer option A, immediately after, that'll trigger the here defined action. And this can be almost any of the actions that we know from anywhere else in the software. In terms of retention, that's a very powerful feature because it allows you to assign an image or a video to each answer option, for instance, with an explanation of why that option is correct or incorrect. So it even lets you discriminate between the different incorrect answers and specify for option B, no, this is not correct because of this, this, and that. And for option C, no, this is not correct, but because of this, this, and that other reason. Or, other than a video as the follow-up action, you could also open different subsequent questions depending on whether the user got this one right or wrong. So you can build an entire question tree with that as well, and you can go pretty much as complex as you want. This can be done for each answer option individually, or in general down here, which would trigger a certain action or media independently of which answer option has been selected. And again, you can make this as complex as your imagination allows. Now, it's worth mentioning that these answer-specific actions here are only available for single-choice questions. If we switch to multiple choice, we can see that the icons behind each option disappear, and that's because in multiple choice, the user will see, say, 3 options in the window. He's asked to select a combination of answers which he thinks are correct, say A and B, and then validate that selection by clicking an OK button on the bottom of the window. Therefore, you can only trigger a common general action once that OK has been clicked, and it's not possible to assign different actions to different answer options. We can select whether we want the user to be able to repeat the question, so once he answered and closed the window, if he clicks the hotspot again, should the question open again or not? And finally, of course, those quiz card windows can either consist of just the question and answer options, or you can include any kind of media to support it. For instance, let's add a photo. Of the crane. And now inside this window, we'd have the photo on the left and the question or the answer options on the right. Let's have a look what that would look like for the user in the tour. Here's the photo, and that's actually a photo album, so we could also load a number of photos here that would show one after the other. Here we have our answer options, and because we've left the multiple choice selection, we can actually select various answer options, for instance, this one, and we click OK. Immediately we see that A was the correct answer, but B was not. In fact, A gave us 1 point for having selected the correct answer, but B subtracted a point because we assigned that the selection B counts as -1 points. So in the end, we end up with 0 points for this question in the score. And that's the quiz card already, a valuable tool to get input from your audience to test their knowledge, their opinions, or to make them play. The windows are all optimized to any screen size, so however you compose them, they'll automatically adapt to the screen that the tour is being watched on, whether desktop or mobile or tablet, and whether you see the screen in horizontal or in vertical. So everything is coded so that it adapts to the screen no matter what media size or measurements you actually import. In terms of VR headsets, right now, not all e-learning functions are VR compatible yet. So while you may be able to run the tour on, say, an Oculus Quest headset, and you can use the count to score function, which is VR compatible, you won't be able to see quiz cards as they are not yet compatible with VR. But we're working on that. Right, on to the last e-learning actions, and this part will be much more brief and simple. So we have these 4 left. These 2 actions should ring a bell. They were the 2 that the program automatically added as soon as we ticked the Enable Quiz option in the e-learning subtab in Publish. Show Report, as the name would suggest, would simply, upon clicking a hotspot that has this action assigned, open the report screen where we see the summary of our actions, our points, the time, etc. While we have this option generally upon finishing the tour, it may be of use to have a certain hotspot or button that allows the user to see his performance throughout the tour already. Next, we have Show Timeout. And when a hotspot with this action is clicked, the user will be shown the timeout message, which can be useful in very specific cases, and that's where you would find this action. After that, we have Start e-learning. As we said, by default, upon clicking the Enable Quiz and Publish, the e-learning or quiz part will start immediately upon opening the virtual tour. So if you have a countdown, that countdown will start directly. But sometimes you may want to start the quiz at a certain point in the tour, maybe a little bit later. For that, we would use this option, which doesn't have much more settings. It's just that. Imagine you have a tour with 5 panoramas and you want to let the user explore the scene first. Say panorama 1 and 2 are for explanation and exploring purposes, and you only want the actual quiz part to start in panorama 3. Well, in that case, you would use this option in panorama 3 to start the quiz as soon as the user accesses panorama 3. Or you could place a hotspot in the scene that says Start Quiz, so the user can navigate freely and without time pressure, without quiz, and then decide in his or her own time when to start the quiz. And lastly, we have Finish e-learning, which is similar, of course. So once a hotspot or a button with this action is clicked, the quiz will finish. And here we have the option to automatically show the report too. So, summing up, the 2 first actions are the actual content actions, probably the ones you will end up using most. And these other ones are more supporting actions to manage the quiz itself, to give the power of when to start and finish the quiz to the user. If we don't put any of those, the program automatically finishes the quiz and launches the report once the program notices that the user has replied to all question cards and opened all of the quiz hotspots. With these couple of functions, you can create a functional e-learning virtual tour that can be as complex and diverse as you want. You can chain, link, and condition several action types and embed your material and training content in a fully trackable virtual tour where students explore, investigate, and learn by means of interaction, immersion, and based on game mechanisms. In the next tutorial, we will have a look at the skin elements related to e-learning. These, however, are not required to create an e-learning tour. You can create a fully functional e-learning tool simply with the functions explained today in this video tutorial, as the creation of the quiz cards with the answers and responses is managed automatically by the program for you, so you don't need to build windows manually in the skin, and you also get a score window at the end, which you don't need to design yourself. So the most essential part of a quiz, which is the feedback, the number of questions, the time someone took, maybe the grade, etc., is there already too, without you having to set or touch anything at all. So for someone who wants to create a fast, easy, and straightforward e-learning tool, that would be all you need to know already. Thanks for watching.